I don't remember exactly when the noise started. Maybe it was always there, humming in the background of my life like a refrigerator that never cycles off. The notifications, the deadlines, the expectations. They piled up, layer by layer, until I couldn't hear my own heartbeat anymore. I was 25, but I felt ancient. My soul felt like a piece of paper that had been scribbled on, erased, and scribbled on again until it was thin and tearing at the edges. I lived in a box made of concrete, worked in a box made of glass, and stared at a box made of light. The city promised connection, but I had never felt more alone. One rainy Tuesday, staring at my reflection in the subway window, I realized I didn't recognize the girl looking back at me. Her eyes were open, but she wasn't seeing. She was just enduring. That was the moment I decided to let go. Not just of the job or the apartment, but of the heavy, suffocating idea of who I was supposed to be. The train ride took 6 hours. 6 hours for the gray to slowly bleed into green. As the signal bars on my phone dropped from 4 to 1 and finally to no service, I felt a panic rise in my chest. It was a phantom limb sensation, the urge to check, to scroll, to update. But then the train rattled over an old bridge, and I looked down at the river below. It was moving so effortlessly. It wasn't rushing to get to the ocean. It was just flowing. I closed my eyes and listened to the rhythm of the tracks. Clack, clack, whoosh, clack, clack, whoosh. It was a lullaby for a tired mind. For the first time in years, I wasn't running late. I wasn't running at all. I was just sitting still, letting the world move around me. I realized then that letting go isn't something you do once. It's a practice. It's the act of exhaling when you didn't realize you were holding your breath. The house stood on a hill that overlooked the valley, silent and stoic. It was my grandmother's sanctuary, locked away since she passed. When I turned the rusty key in the lock, the door groaned, a sound of protest against the intrusion. The air inside was thick, suspended in time. It smelled of dried lavender, old wood, and silence. Every object in the room was covered in a white sheet, like ghosts of furniture waiting to be resurrected. I walked to the center of the living room and pulled the sheet off the old armchair. Dust motes danced in the shaft of sunlight that pierced through the heavy curtains. Millions of tiny particles, floating, aimless, beautiful in their chaos. In the city, dust is dirt. Here, in this stillness, dust looked like stardust. I sat in the chair, the springs creaking beneath me, and I just stared at the dust. I had brought a suitcase of clothes, but I carried a mountain of worries. I wondered if this old house was strong enough to hold them both. The next morning, I didn't start with a plan. I started with a broom. There's something profoundly spiritual about sweeping a floor. Left, right, left, right. The rhythm becomes a mantra. I wasn't just pushing dirt out the door, I was sweeping away the clutter in my mind. With every stroke of the broom, I imagined pushing out a specific worry. Sweep. There goes the fear of not being good enough. Sweep. There goes the anxiety about next year. Sweep. There goes the regret of yesterday. We tend to hold on to things because we think they define us, even our pain, even our stress. We wear our exhaustion like a badge of honor. But as the floorboards began to reveal their golden brown grain under the layers of grime, I felt lighter. It wasn't an instant cure. My heart was still heavy, but my space was clearing. And sometimes, clearing the space around you is the first step to clearing the space within you. I opened all the windows. The wind rushed in, carrying the scent of wet earth and pine needles, chasing away the stale air of the past decade. By evening, my body was tired in a way that felt good. Not the mental exhaustion of sitting in a meeting, but the physical tiredness of honest work. I didn't have much in the kitchen. Just some rice, some water, and a few herbs from the overgrown garden that had survived the neglect. I made a simple porridge. In the city, I would eat while watching a screen, barely tasting the food, my mind already on the next task. Tonight, I sat in the dim light of the kitchen and just ate. The rice was warm. The herbs were sharp and fresh. It was the best meal I had eaten in years because I was actually there to taste it. I realized that joy doesn't hide in expensive things. It hides in the attention we give to simple things. To let go of the need for more is to finally realize that you already have enough. If the house was dusty, the garden was a rebellion. Nature had taken back what was hers. Weeds the size of small trees choked the pathways. Ivy strangled the old oak fence. It was a chaotic, tangled mess of green. Standing on the porch, coffee cup in hand, I felt that familiar tightness in my chest again. The urge to fix it all right now. The urge to conquer. In the city, we are taught to dominate our environment, to pave over the grass, to control the temperature, to filter the air. But here, the garden stared back at me, wild and indifferent to my schedule. I realized I couldn't just clean this. I had to understand it. I had to work with it, not against it. I put on my gloves. It wasn't a battle I was stepping into. It was a conversation. There was an old rose bush in the corner, suffocated by dead wood. I read that to save it, I had to prune it hard. I had to cut away almost 2/3 of the plant. Standing there with the shears in my hand, I hesitated. It felt cruel. It felt like I was hurting it. Why cut away something that was once part of the whole? But then I understood. The dead branches were stealing energy. They were taking nutrients from the roots, but giving no flowers in return. Humans are the same. We hold on to dead relationships, dead dreams, and dead habits because we are afraid of the cut. We think that keeping everything makes us rich, but it only makes us tired. With a deep breath, I made the first cut. Snap. It was a sharp sound, but it wasn't the sound of death. It was the sound of liberation. By the third day, I took off my gloves. I wanted to feel the earth. The soil was cool, damp, and alive. Scientists say that soil contains bacteria that stimulate serotonin in our brains, a natural antidepressant. I don't know about the science, but I know about the feeling. Touching the ground grounded me. For years, I had lived in the cloud. Digital files, virtual meetings, abstract goals. My hands were always clean, but my mind was always messy. Here, with dirt under my fingernails, I felt a strange clarity. I wasn't a manager, or a daughter, or a failure, or a success. I was just another living thing, sitting on the skin of the planet. The earth doesn't care about your salary. It only asks for your presence. I planted seeds in the cleared patches. Tomatoes, basil, cosmos flowers, and then the waiting began. This was the hardest part for my city-wired brain. I wanted to click refresh and see the sprout. I wanted to expedite the shipping of the harvest. But nature moves at the speed of trust. I watched a snail cross a leaf. It took him 10 minutes to travel a few inches. Yet, he didn't look anxious. He wasn't worried about being late. He was exactly where he needed to be. Why are we always rushing? What are we running towards that is so important we miss the journey getting there? The garden taught me that growing takes time, and you cannot pull the sprout to make it grow faster. You can only water it, protect it, and wait. Waiting is not passive. Waiting is an act of hope. Then the rain came. Not a drizzle, but a downpour that lasted for 2 days. I couldn't go out. I couldn't work. At first, I felt guilty. I felt lazy. The voice in my head said, "You should be doing something." But as I watched the rain soak into the thirsty earth, I realized the garden needed this. It needed the gray skies to survive the sunny days. We are terrified of sadness. We treat our tears like a malfunction. But maybe sadness is just rain for the soul. Maybe we need those dark days to water the seeds of resilience within us. I wrapped myself in a blanket, made tea, and did absolutely nothing. And for the first time, I didn't apologize for it. I let it rain outside, and I let it be quiet inside. The pruning was done. The seeds were sown. Now, it was time to rest. Weeks turned into months. The calendar on the wall remained stuck in April, but the calendar outside was moving fast. One morning, I saw it. A flash of red amidst the green. My first tomato. It wasn't perfectly round like the ones in the supermarket. It was slightly lopsided, warm from the morning sun. I wiped it on my shirt and took a bite. The flavor exploded in my mouth, sweet, tart, and earthy. It tasted like sunlight trapped in a skin. It tasted like patience. I realized then how disconnected I had been. I used to buy food wrapped in plastic, scanned by a machine, eaten in a rush. But this was a relationship. I cared for it, and now it was nourishing me. There is a profound magic in eating something you watched grow from a speck of dust. It reminds you that you are capable of creating, not just consuming. The more the garden gave, the more I learned about the lie of perfection. My carrots came out twisted, looking like they were dancing. My cucumbers were curved like crescent moons. In the city, these would be thrown away. They would be called defective. But here, they were perfect in their own way. Why are we so obsessed with straight lines? Nature doesn't do straight lines. Rivers meander, trees twist, mountains are jagged. Only humans try to force everything into a box. I looked at my crooked carrots and thought about myself. I have scars, I have quirks, I have a past that isn't a straight line to success. And for the first time, I didn't want to fix myself. I am just like this carrot, grown from the dirt, a little weird, but full of flavor. Perfection is boring. Flaws are where the character lives. Just when I thought I had figured it out, the sky turned purple. A summer storm, fierce and sudden, rolled over the hills. The wind howled like a wounded animal. I watched helplessly from the window as my tall, proud sunflowers were whipped back and forth. My instinct was to run out, to tie them up, to shield them with my own body. The old Hana would have panicked. She would have been angry at the sky. She would have taken it personally, asking, "Why is this happening to me?" But I stayed inside. I gripped my teacup and whispered, "Let it blow. You cannot stop the wind. You cannot scream at the thunder. The only thing you can do is trust that what is meant to stand will stand, and what falls will become food for the soil." The morning came with a silence so loud it rang in my ears. The sun was shining as if nothing had happened. Nature is cruel and innocent like that. I walked into the garden. 3 of my sunflowers were snapped in half. Their golden heads lay in the mud. My heart sank, but it didn't break. I didn't cry over the wasted effort. Instead, I picked up the broken flowers. I brought them inside and put them in a vase. They were broken, yes, but they were still beautiful. They still had color. Loss is inevitable. Plans fail. Storms happen. The art of happiness is not in preventing the breakage, but in gathering the pieces and finding a new way to display them. I didn't lose a garden. I just gained a bouquet for my table. That afternoon, my neighbor, Mr. Sato, walked by. He has farmed this land for 60 years. He saw my broken sunflowers and chuckled softly. I expected pity, but he offered perspective. "The wind is a gardener too, Hana-san," he said, leaning on his hoe. "It tests the roots. The trees that fall make room for the light to reach the smaller plants below. Nothing is wasted." He handed me a bag of seeds. "Winter radishes," he winked. "They love the cold. When one season ends, another begins immediately. Don't mourn the summer sun too long, or you will miss the beauty of the autumn moon." I held the seeds in my palm. They were tiny black specks, full of potential. I realized that I wasn't alone here. We are all part of this cycle, growing, breaking, healing, and beginning again. Winter arrived not with a shout, but with a whisper. I woke up one morning and the world had been painted white. The chaotic green of summer, the fiery orange of autumn, all gone, buried under a thick, silent blanket of snow. In the city, snow was a nuisance. It meant traffic jams, gray slush, and delays. Here, snow is a permission slip. Nature has pressed the pause button. The trees are not dead. They are sleeping. The soil is resting. And for the first time, I allowed myself to do the same. There is no guilt in stillness. The bear does not apologize for hibernating. The tree does not apologize for losing its leaves. Why do we apologize for needing rest? I looked out at the white expanse and felt a profound peace. The race was over. There was nowhere to go. The days grew short, and the nights grew long. My world shrank to the 4 walls of the cottage and the warmth of the fireplace. I learned to knit. I read books that I had bought years ago but never opened. I listened to the wood crackle in the hearth. This is the secret of winter. You cannot appreciate the warmth if you do not know the cold. You cannot appreciate the light if you do not know the dark. In my old life, everything was temperature controlled, artificial, constant. I was numb. Now I feel everything. The bite of the frost on my cheeks when I fetch firewood, and the embrace of the heat when I step back inside. I am no longer numb. I am awake. One morning, I caught a glimpse of myself in the hallway mirror. I stopped. The girl staring back was familiar, yet completely different from the one who stood in the subway station a year ago. The dark circles under her eyes were gone. The tightness in her jaw had softened. But mostly, it was the eyes. The frantic search for approval was gone. I realized that finding yourself isn't about becoming someone new. It's about unbecoming everything that isn't you. It's about peeling off the layers of expectations, fears, and shoulds until you reveal the person who was there all along. I haven't become a new Hana. I have finally returned to the original Hana. Yesterday, I saw it. The snow is beginning to recede, just a little. And there, near the porch steps, a single snowdrop flower has pushed through the frozen earth. It is fragile, yet it is the strongest thing I have ever seen. It signals that the cycle is beginning again. I am not afraid of the future anymore. I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't know where I will be in a decade. And that is okay. I have this season. I have this garden. I have these two hands that know how to plant, how to prune, and how to wait. Life is not a destination to be reached. It is a garden to be tended. So, if you are listening to this, feeling the weight of the world on your shoulders, I want you to know it is okay to put the backpack down. It is okay to let the garden grow wild for a while. It is okay to change direction. You are not falling behind. You are just finding your own pace. The door to a simpler life is not locked. It never was. You just have to turn the handle, let go, breathe, and welcome home.